Hello, welcome to Ian's Bricks, and today I'm going to go through a roundup of the last Lego show that I went to. Now, it was quite a while ago, so apologies that I haven't done this earlier, but this was the Brighton Brick Festival, and it was in the middle of June, so it was a few weeks ago now that I did this show, and I just really wanted to talk about how the show generally went for me, sort of some of the sets that I sold, how much I took at the shows, how much of that is profit, and is it kind of worth me continuing to do these shows. So just a few things really to talk about. I know I've done these similar kind of videos before. I haven't done one for a while, so I thought it was about time that I did a little bit of a roundup of one of the recent shows that I did and sort of compare that as well to some of the other shows that I've done this year. So yes, this was the Brighton Brick Festival. It was at the Amex Stadium, the Brighton and Hove Albion football ground. A couple of hours drive away for me, so it's quite a long way to go. I did decide just to do it in one day, and it actually, the travel went fine. It was nice early in the morning. Obviously it was middle of summer, so it was light really early in the morning, and I got there. Slightly different setup than normal, so normally it's at sports halls and things, and you can just drive straight up to the one of the back entrances and unload the car and things. They were all very, very organised. They had some fantastic helpers. Obviously they're used to sort of things happening at the stadium, plenty of staff on hand, and we sort of all had to queue up, and then we were all called down and unload the car. There were two areas where we could unload the car, and it was basically underneath the football ground is where the actual show was, the signs were that the show was going to be sort of okay, a reasonable show, nothing too crazy busy, but it certainly wasn't going to be too quiet either. And yes, it was a very reasonable day. My only downside for the day is that my stall was right next to an air conditioning unit, which was whirring away most of the day. It kind of drove me mad a little bit. These things happen. You're never going to get a perfect spot, but I was kind of in the middle of the area where the Brick Festival was, and there were plenty of people coming through the doors, especially early on. I'd actually taken quite a lot of sets which I'd recently won from auctions and got from other people's collections and things like that. So the downside of that is there's less profit in that for me, and when I get to the figures at the end of the video, you'll kind of understand kind of how that sort of impacts what I'm kind of making and taking at these shows. So all in all, I packed my car very, very tightly. I just take my normal car and I pack it full of Lego. I took 167 sets. Now what I mean by sets is anything that is in a box. So it can be a really, really small set, sort of this size, which sells for about a tenner, to a really, really big box, say like a modular building or a large vehicle or something like that. So I do take a variety of sets. On top of that, I did have a few other things as well, like poly bags and a few other bits and bobs, but generally I sort of go on how many sets I take and how many I sold. All in all, of those 167 sets, I sold 75 of those, so slightly less than half. So it wasn't too bad. I think as shows go, it was okay. I certainly have had busier shows, but I've certainly had quieter shows as well. Of the big sets that I did sell, two of the best ones, or my best sort of sale really of the day, was I sold 10248, the Ferrari. That was from a few years ago, that set. I sold that for £320, or it was on at £320, and I also sold to the same guy 10220, that was the VW Camper, the red one, and that was on at £170. Now both of those together would have been £490. I think I ended up selling those for 460, something like that. I knocked a little bit of money off, but I was kind of quite happy to sell those sets because they were quite expensive sets. Now I paid quite a lot of money for both of those sets. The Ferrari cost me £254, ouch, and the Camper cost me £127. So the costs on that are fairly high, so just obviously bear that in mind when I'm selling these. So there's a lot of these bigger sets that I sell, there is very, very slim profit margins in there for me, so I have to sort of bear that in mind. I also sold two 17. That's the Imperial Hotel from the Architecture range. I sold that for £140, and I actually bought that quite a while ago. I think it was about £100 it cost me at the time. So again, not a huge profit on that, £40 profit. But that's the set I'd had for a few shows. It hadn't kind of sold. I bought a couple of them, and they hadn't really gone very, very quickly. But finally, it did actually manage to sell. So small profit on that one. As with this one as well, 75371. It was the Star Wars Chewbacca. So that was a set that retailed at £180. I think everybody knew when that was on sale last year and the year before that was too expensive for what it was. I managed to get my hands on these for 90. I bought them at retail and I sold it for 135. So £45 profit. It's sort of 50% profit. That's not too bad on a very, very short time scale, because it only retired really at the end of last year. And it was one of those sets that I actually took sort of as an extra set. When I packed my car with all my Lego, I actually had a little bit of room left. I'm thinking, what can I take? What can I take? So I sort of dug around in my attic, in my garage, and found a few bigger sets to sort of fill the gaps. And that was one of the sets that I took, which I wasn't planning to take. I say that sold for an okay profit. I mean, still way, way below what that was at recommended retail price only just last year. But for me, it was a small profit. I do have more of those. It's not the end of the world that I'm selling these quite early on. But when you go to these shows, you have to take something with you. A lot of the older sets which I had many, many moons ago, which I've got sort of a lot of profit on, where they've increased in price a lot. A lot of those older sets, they've all sold on now. I sold those ages ago. So I am sort of really getting to the stage now where I'm having to sell slightly newer sets, and this is why I buy sets from auction and things like that, so that I can have some older sets to take. But also because what's happening in that time is, as I'm not selling the sets that I'm buying sort of last year or the year before, I'm holding on to those hopefully a little bit longer. They're supposedly, that what the idea is, that they appreciate in value and I'm able to sell other things as well. But it does mean, of course, that my profit margins, when I do sell a lot of stuff not long after it's retired, or that I get from auctions, that my profit margins are going to be significantly reduced for that. Another big set that I sold, 75365, that's the Star Wars Yavin 4 Rebel base. Sold that for £120. Again, I bought that for 90, so really only £30 profit on that. And again, that was sort of a lastminute.com thing that I took with me. I just had a bit of space, thought I'd take it, and it ended up selling. Again, I've got plenty more of those, so it's not the end of the world. And I also sold just under £100, was 10271, the yellow Creative 500, Fiat 500 even. I sold that for £95. I think I bought that at auction. Again, that worked out at about £65 when I bought that. So again, quite a smallish profit. Percentage wise, it's not too bad, but yeah, these profit margins on some of these auction hauls that I buy aren't the best. But again, it is just nice to have some different and unusual sets to sell at these shows. Another set that I did manage to sell as well, a smaller set, but we went for a high value. It was the Brickhead, the Ariel and Ursula. Now, I did have that on at £99. I think the guy did barter with me a little bit, and I think I sold it for, I think it was about 90. But again, there was a reasonable profit on that, but not huge, probably £20-25 profit on that one. And I did sell quite a lot of Brickheads. So this is a show that I'd actually got a lot of Brickheads from someone that was sold that collection. And the first sale that I made was a lovely lady that's one of my subscribers. Sorry, I do forget your name, but she messaged me the day before and said, what Brickheads have you got? Do you want a particular Brickhead? And I said, yes, I've got that one. So I think I kept that one to one side for her. And she literally came in and was sort of humming and hawing and sort of bought the one, and then thought, you know what, I'm just going to go out and buy all 10. So she literally bought the first 10. So I had numbers 1 to 10 of the first 10 Brickheads ever that were released. And actually, she basically, her and her partner basically bought all of them, all 10 of them. So thank you very much for that. Now, obviously, I did do a little bit of a deal because they're buying so much from me. That's fine. Again, I got these at auction, so my profit margins aren't huge on that. But it did mean that I sold a lot of Brickheads that day. Out of the 75 sets that I sold, 32 of those sets, believe it or not, were Brickheadz. So I do go on about Brickheadz, and I know I buy a lot of Brickheadz. Quite often when I buy Brickheadz, I'm actually just trying to add something onto my order. Say if there was a gift with purchase for £135, and I've got a set that I want to buy as 120, then I need sort of another £15, £18 just to take my order over that £135 barrier. And I do that a lot with Brickheadz, and that's kind of one of the reasons I end up with quite a lot of Brickheadz, is because they're useful to get. They're generally only available in Lego stores and Lego online, so they're quite difficult to get hold of, and they do sell quite well at shows, as you've seen there. I mean, obviously I had some older Brickhead sets, which was great to be able to take those, some unusual ones as well, but there weren't just all the old ones and unusual ones. There were some other ones as well, some general ones that I kind of took from my sort of my own sort of sets, which I'd sort of bought through retail and things like that. One thing that is always quite a good thing to sell at shows are the promo sets. So these are sets that you will get if you spend, as I've just mentioned, a certain amount on Lego.com, say £100, £150, whatever it is, and you will then get a promo set. And I've always said in the past that the promo sets sell really, really well at shows, because they're quite often sets that people weren't aware that they existed, because a lot of these promo sets are only available for a week or so. If you miss them, then people don't realise that these sets have ever been made, or that they maybe just miss out on the sets or don't want to spend the money to buy them. So people will actually prefer just to buy them as an individual set rather than spend like £150, £200 on more Lego sets just to get that gift with purchase. Now, in this particular show, I did only sell 10 promo sets, which I'd actually got for free, but 3 of those were the Space Babies, and that's the Red Space Baby, and I actually sold all 3 of those for £34, so that's not bad. I think the spend threshold for those was 135. I think I might right to guessing that wasn't that long ago they were for sale. I actually got loads of these. I think I got about 15 or 16, which I think is the most promos I've ever got from Lego.com, because I like the sets and I think they're just very, very nice sets altogether. I think you can maybe you can't see this. They've got a Space Baby up there. It's probably just out of camera shot there. You can probably just see the bottom of it. Really nice little set anyway. And so yeah, so 3 of those. Other things like the Coral Reef, there's a Coral Reef one that I sold as well. That went for £28, all the way down to the Bright Bomber Brickhead from Fortnite, which I sell for £12. So these promo sets sell anywhere from generally £10 to £12 up to, well, whatever they go for, really. Some of these sets, I know the books On My Passion recently, which I've all sold those now, they were sort of going for sort of £65, £70 at one stage. So some of these promo sets are definitely worth going. The good news about selling promo sets, of course, is I class that all as profit. So yeah, it's always good to sell some of those. However, all in all, even though I did quite well at the show, there were a lot of costs involved in that, and of course most of my costs were the actual cost of the actual sets. So let me try and break this down for you, what my costs were for this particular show. In total, the cost of the sets that I actually sold, so that's not all of the sets that I brought with me on the day, because obviously some of them didn't sell, but the cost of the sets I did actually sell were £1,859.44. So that is very, very high, and that's probably a lot higher than it normally would be. And as I've explained, that's simply because I had sets with much lower profit margins than normal, and I was expecting to sell quite a few of these things, but again, my profits are never going to be huge when I'm buying from auction and from other sellers and things like that. So yeah, £1,859.44. On top of that, whenever you take money at these shows, most of the money that you take, it tends to be about 75% of it is people paying on card. I have a thing called a sum up card reader, and that charges me 1.69% of whatever I sell, and you can sell something for as low as £1. My total card fees were £35.40. I'll tell you how much I made on the card and cash in a bit, and the actual cost of the tables as well. So when you go to the these brick shows, they're not free to attend. As somebody that's selling Lego, they do charge you for tables. Normally you pay a deposit in advance. It's normally £10 a table, something like that. And then on top of that, normally about a month before the actual show, you get asked to pay up the balance. And if you buy any backing tables as well. So I normally get 2 front tables and 1 backing table, and the total of that is around about £170. So that's quite a big chunk. So you think about, how much money you need to make at these shows. When you've got your cost of your tables of £170, that is quite a bit. So when you go to these shows and you sort of see some of the prices, and maybe they are a little bit higher than you can find on eBay and things like that. That's one of the reasons why is not only are we having to buy the sets and source the sets from wherever we get them, we have to pay for the tables as well. We have to pay card fees on transactions that we take. Also, I had to pay petrol to get to Brighton. Now, my return trip to and from Brighton, it was around about 2 hours there, 2 hours back. My car's pretty good on economy, but I reckon it cost me around about £25, maybe £30 worth of petrol or gas, whatever you call that. So I've said £25 because it was around about half a tank for me. When I fill up, I normally fill up with around about £50-ish. And I'd used half a tank. So that's kind of a rough estimate. That obviously doesn't include anything else like wear and tear on the car, or like a proportion of what my insurance would cost, which I do have business insurance, by the way, on my car. So all these other things as well I haven't included in this. I'm just going for sort of the bare costs. Now, I have included £10 of extras. So whenever I go to these shows, there are things like plastic bags that I put sets in. There's stationery, there's cost of printing. I do little labels and everything. I buy post-it notes. So there's all these sort of little things that add up. So I've decided to sort of include, I can't remember I'm sure I bought some new plastic bags this time, and they cost me around about, I don't know, £7 or £8. I can't remember what they were. So I've actually put down sort of extras for peripheral costs of around about £10. So having said that, of all the sets that I sold, so that makes the total amount of costs for me £2,099.84. I mean, I'm going to round it up to £2,100 because that kind of makes sense. So that's a lot of costs that I've actually had at that particular show. So what did I actually take? So this is where it sort of gets a little bit. I've done all that work, and this is literally the net profit that I've made. So my take-ins for the day at the Brighton Brick Festival were £2,547. Obviously, with costs of £2,100, that makes my actual profit on that show only £451, which isn't very much. And I have to say, I sort of look at these figures sometimes, and I know in the past I've done these, and I think I did a show at was it Bournemouth maybe earlier this year, where I took over £3,000 and my profit was £1,600, which was a lot better. I think obviously it was a busier show, but also I was probably selling, some of the sets were from my own collection rather than from auction and things, and I was able to get slightly higher profit margins. So it does sort of make you think, when you go to all this effort, that I did only make £451 of profit on that. 447. I'm getting some of my figures mixed up. So yeah, £447 of profit. So I was reading from the wrong figure there, but it's still not a lot of money. Now, what of course I've not factored into any of this is the time it takes me to do all of this. Now, there's not only getting all the boxes and sets ready, which actually didn't take me too long this time, I have to say. I've got it down to fine art now. It only takes an evening or so, but I've got to price everything up, figure out how much the things cost, do all the labels of all the extra sets which I needed to sort of add labels on. I do change a few labels sometimes if things aren't selling. I will lower the price if maybe I think I've had my prices a little bit low. I'll make them a little bit higher. So that's not including any of the time, and of course any of the time on the day. I'm literally there. I'm setting off at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm getting home at sort of 8-9 o'clock at night. It's a long day for me to make £451 or £447 in profit. So it just sort of bear that in mind if you are doing these shows. Now obviously I think my profits were a lot lower this time, just because I had so many sets that were from auctions and from that I bought from other people as well. However, how is that money broken down then? So of the 2,547, 451, that's where I got my 451 for, so sorry, so 451 of that was cash, and 2,096 of it was on card. So you can see that, what's that? It's probably about 80%. 80% of the money that I took on the day was on card. Most people do have cards these days. I think if you do ever go to a show to sell anything, you're just going to need a card reader. And any way you can do it, there's various ways you can do it. I say I use a sum up card reader, which I quite like because it has quite low fees. But yeah, it just sort of shows you that there's a lot of card money out there, and I have had more cash on some shows. Some people will come with a wad of cash sometimes, not realising that people have got credit card machines. But yeah, the majority of people will pay by card. So yeah, so £447 profit on that particular show. On top of that, of course, I will make a little bit of money from doing my videos. I've worked out, I did like a pre-video of what I was taking and the video of the day. Now, obviously, I've got this video as well, which will be monetised as well. So far on videos, I've probably made about £40. Probably make another £10 to £15 on this video. Who knows? So if you add that sort of on top of everything, maybe I'll scrape about £500 profit in total for that particular show, which I have to say isn't great. However, it doesn't stop me from wanting to do these shows, because I really do enjoy doing these shows. And even though the profit isn't great on this particular show, I have had other shows where I've made a lot more money and made a lot more profit as well. I think this is probably one of those shows that I did well to take the money that I did. The takings on the day, I thought I was quite pleased with. It was reasonable. But yeah, I just maybe need to be careful not to buy too many sets at auction. But yeah, it's just me being maybe a little bit more savvy. But I don't regret doing the show. Would I do it all over again? Yes, of course I would. I've got more shows coming up in the year where I might make similar profits as well. So yeah, just sort of bear that in mind. You've got to make sure that you're making enough money from these things to break even. And the way I see it more than anything, yes, the profit was fairly low on this particular show, but what I was able to do is that money, all of that money that I made at the show, I was then able to plough back in to buy in more Lego. So when there were deals during July, there were loads of sort of special offers and sales and all sorts of things, I had that money spare then to buy more Lego. And don't forget as well, I do have an almost full-time job. I've actually lowered my hours recently. I was working 5 days a week, but I was finding I was struggling, especially when I was getting to a show weekend and I didn't have enough time to get everything ready. So I've actually gone down to 4 days a week now, which really helps me. I generally get Thursdays off, which is quite nice. And if I've got a show or something happening at the weekend, I can prepare on the Thursday, and that means I'm not rushing around so much on Friday evening or Saturday morning or anything like that. So it has made it easy, but of course that does mean I'm earning less money. So I've had to obviously cut down my hours, and that cuts down how much pay I get. However, that said, I basically have got a fallback. So this isn't my only income. I do have a job as well. So even though the profit for this was quite small for me this particular time, I say I can reinvest that money into something else. But also I do have plenty of money to sort of keep buying Lego as well, and buy more Lego, and just do the day-to-day things as well. So and I think I'm at the stage now where I've got so much Lego in storage, so much Lego to sell in the future, that I'm probably in quite a good situation where I have got a lot of Lego that I can sell if I really, really needed to. So it's not the end of the world that I'm making small profits at this particular time. Hopefully, as time goes on and I'm able to keep sets back for longer and longer, those profit margins will increase. Okay, so 2,547 take-ins for Brighton. How does that compare with other shows this year? At the start of the year, I had two incredibly good shows, well, three incredibly good shows really, at Tunbridge Wells, Portsmouth, and then at Bournemouth. All of those shows I did incredibly well over, I think, £4,000 for the first two, and I think close to £4,000 for Bournemouth as well. So I had a really, really good start to the year. Now, since then, I have done 5 more shows, including Brighton, and I did the Woking Brick Festival, and this is my total takings. I've not broken every single thing down this time with profits and things, but to give you an idea of what I'm taking at these shows. So Woking, I took £3,088, so that was quite a good show. Then at Exeter, there was a show there, and I moaned a little bit there at that particular show because there were a lot of traders at that show. I counted about 40 traders, so the takings were always going to be lower that day because you're just competing against so many other people. So Exeter, I took £2,352. And then there was the Eastleigh or Southampton Brick Festival, where I took 2,338. Very, very similar takings between Eastleigh and Exeter. And then in May, middle of May, I did the Gloucester Brick Festival, where I took 2,970. So I think you can sort of see a pattern here that generally doing two tables at shows, and I think, yes, all of these shows were reasonably busy. There was reasonable footfall of people coming through on these shows, but I'm generally making at these shows anywhere between about £2,300 and about £3,000, which seems to be the sort of what I would consider an average show. Between £2,500 and £3,000 takings would be a sort of a normal average show for me. Obviously you get the better shows, which I had at the start of the year, and of course I have had much worse shows than that, and I obviously keep in touch with people from the sort of Lego reselling community, and a lot of people, there's always somebody somewhere going to a Lego show or National Brick event somewhere in the country. Some of these shows can be really, really good, and some of them can be pretty dreadful, to be fair. I mean, I had shows myself last year where I'm taking £700, and that's just not even going to cover your costs. So these shows unfortunately happen. It can be many, many factors. It can be that the advertising hasn't been great. It can be that the area doesn't lend itself to Lego. One example of this, I think, is Oxford. I did a brick show at Oxford last year. I think it was National Brick event, and it was really poorly attended. I wasn't feeling very well that day either, which probably didn't help. And again, takings were very, very low. But for whatever reason, Oxford, even though I would consider Oxford to be potentially a good city to do a thing like this, they just tend not to be very, very busy. And yet you'll go to somewhere like Tunbridge Wells, which population-wise is probably smaller than Oxford, and it was absolutely crazy busy. So sometimes there's no rhyme or reason as to why shows are busy. I do find as you get into the summer, so this time of year, especially if it's a very, very warm, hot day, that shows tend to be a little bit quieter because I think people would rather be doing other things. And I think as we get into August, I've got 2 shows in August. I'm not expecting great things from either of those shows, so if we do have a busy day, I think that'll be an added bonus. So there's a lot of these sort of factors to weigh in when you're picking which shows you do. Quite often it's quite difficult to get into these shows as well, so you basically just when they go on sale, you try and get in as many as you can, and sometimes unfortunately these shows aren't particularly very good. But I think I've been relatively lucky this year in that all of my shows have been okay, if not fantastic. So the lowest takings I've taken so far this year was the 2,338 at the Eastleigh or Southampton Brick Festival, and that compares to the previous year. So the previous year was literally, I think, almost the same weekend. They had a brick festival at Southampton, Eastleigh, in the same location. And that was the first one they ever had, and that was ridiculously busy. I think I took well over £5,000 that day. I virtually had nothing left. So even the same location, the same venue, a different time of year, or a year later, there can be very, very different shows. And again, sometimes a lot of these towns and cities, if they have 2, 3, or even 4 shows a year in the local area, again, you'll get a lot of apathy from the people that are coming to these shows. There's only so many brick shows that you can go to, and I think there can be a little bit of oversaturation as well with some of these brick shows and brick festivals as to how many shows there are in any particular location. So that can be an issue as well. But yeah, there are certainly some good shows still out there to be had, but again, it's not all the time. So yeah, this wasn't the greatest show in terms of profit. Did I enjoy the show? Yeah, I really did actually. It was a nice show to go to. It was one of those sort of days. It was a nice summer's day, beautiful drive over on a Sunday morning, no traffic. Got to Brighton in less than 2 hours, which if you try and do that on a Friday afternoon, it would take you 3.5 hours. It was, it was just great to sort of sail through. And again, even on the way home, the traffic was fine. The weather had been quite nice that day, and I thought, maybe people would be doing other things. And I think it was a London to Brighton cycle ride as well. That's the thing that happens every year, but that didn't seem to affect anything too much, which was good. And I did okay on the day, takings wise, but as I say, just my profits were a little bit low. So I think if you are going to do these shows, they are hard work. I get it. There's a lot of time and effort that you put into these things. Sometimes the profits aren't as much as you would like because there are lots and lots of costs that are involved in this. I still would prefer doing a show hands down than just selling online or on eBay all the time. I don't do that because of the time it takes to pack and post everything up and all this kind of stuff. And I know there's time involved and things at these shows, but it's all sort of squeezed into one day really. Normally to weekend when I'm not working. If I was post and packing things, I'd be having to do it during the week after work, and I'd get pretty sick of that pretty quickly. So that's one of the reasons why I do like to sell at shows, even though maybe like this time it hasn't been the most productive or successful show all around for me. But never mind, I've no fear. I will still be doing these shows. I still do enjoy them. I really, really enjoy sort of saying hello to people, playing shopkeeper, all that kind of stuff. They will continue. So I've actually got 3 shows coming up throughout August and September. I've got the Torquay Brick Festival, which is my next show, and that is on Sunday the 3rd of August. So if you're in and around Devon and Torquay area, I will be at that show there. Then 2 weeks later, I'm back at Portsmouth. So Portsmouth's relatively local to me. I actually work in Portsmouth, but only have to go in 1 day a week. It's about an hour's drive away for me. This will be the 3rd show I think that I've done at Portsmouth. Again, not expecting great things from this. It was a really, really good show at the start of the year, but I think having a show in August, I think there was a national brick event there not too many weeks ago as well. Again, I'm thinking that's going to be much, much quieter than the show in the spring, but we'll have to wait and see. So that is the 17th of August. I think that's a Sunday again. And then I think it's the 6th of September. It's my local show, which is the Bournemouth Brick Festival, and that's at the Bournemouth International Centre, right in the heart of Bournemouth on the seafront. I've done a few shows there. They're normally very, very good, so hopefully, fingers crossed, it will be another good show at Bournemouth. So they are my next 3 shows that I will be doing. So if you are able to get to any of those shows, then do please come to them and come and say hello. Even if you don't buy anything, just come and say hello. That's always much appreciated. But hopefully that's given you an idea of what's involved in these shows. They are hard work, and not always are you going to get the profits that you want. It's very hit and miss sometimes as to whether these shows are going to be busy or not. But I think I've been relatively lucky and done okay this year. And I say, even though the profits are small, I will then just plough that money into buying more Lego, hopefully hold those sets for 2 or 3 years, and then by the time I get to selling them, hopefully my profit margins will be a little bit better than some of the profit margins that I've been selling sets for recently. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this roundup. I'll stop waffling. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you got to the end of the video, thank you very much. It is much appreciated. There'll be more videos coming soon in a week or so keep an eye out for those. Very looking forward to going to the Lego store at the beginning of August to see all the loads of new sets out, so I'll be looking forward to that. But that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Take care. Until the next video, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe.